I'm standing here at the gardens at Glendoick in a fine spring morning underneath one of our magnificent magnolias. This has been here for about 90 years now, and it's one of the star magnolias. This one is called Magnolia Leonard Messel, and this is one of the magnolias that we recommend for a smaller, medium-sized garden. Now, I do realise that this plant is about 25 feet high, but this plant has been here since the 1920s. It's nearly 100 years old, so you have to bear that in mind, because I do realise that not everyone has room for a magnolia of this magnificence. But the star magnolias are fairly easy to grow, and they flower on every single shoot every single year, and flowering in April. This is another one of the star magnolias, probably the most popular of all, Magnolia stellata. This one is pure white and one of the easiest magnolias to please. What do magnolias require if you want to have a happy magnolia? Well, they need a little bit of wind shelter. There's no doubt that if the flowers get blasted by east winds in the spring, they just go brown quite quickly. They need some fairly rich soil, and they like a lot of feed. We find that if you put a bit of manure or something like that in them, even mulching, that keeps them happy. But any fertilizer will do. And they do need a reasonable amount of space. So don't make the mistake of planting them too near a house or a wall or something like that. They really do need a little bit of space to spread out. But otherwise, they're really quite easy and reliable, and unless we get a really horrible spring with terrible frosts, they will produce a magnificent show for you every year. So the other main category of spring flowering magnolias are the goblet magnolias, so called because as the flowers open out, they look like a goblet or a glass. This one is Magnolia soulangiana, which is by far the most popular kind. The largest flowered magnolia of all is Magnolia camberlii, which comes from the Himalayas. It's absolutely magnificent, and if you go to Cornwall, you'll see fantastic plants of it. There are all sorts of problems and challenges with growing it in Scotland, not least of which it grows for 20 years without bothering to flower, and then somewhere 40 foot up in the air or so, certainly 20 foot up in the air, you get your flowers. They come very early. They usually get frosted. If they're not frosted, the flowers are blown off by the wind. So somebody in New Zealand decided to cross Magnolia camberlii with this little magnolia, Magnolia liliiflora nigra, which is very hardy and flowers very young. And the results are towering over my head here. This is Magnolia Star Wars. I reckon it's the #1 magnolia now of all. It has every attribute you can want. It's a magnificent goblet flower. One of the really clever things about it is it opens its flowers over several weeks, so if there's a bit of wind or a bit of frost, you don't lose everything in one go. And it flowers from a very young age, and it flowers on every single shoot, every single year. This is probably one of the oldest plants in the country. It's probably about 15 or 20 years old now, and every year it's absolutely magnificent. So if there was one magnolia for me, I would plant Star Wars.